Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scott McTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks Podcast.
Hey everybody, it is Scott. It is Wednesday, and it is a special edition of your Pitchwerks Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. So, I told you a few weeks back that I got a really nice request from Ascender and from Thrival. Kenny Chen, our friend, gave me a call and said that they would like me to moderate a panel called It's Not Just About the Tech. It was a panel with some real all-star guests, and they wanted to talk about the fact that you would need to brand and communicate and market. And they got people from 500 Startups, from Pinterest, from Harry's Grooming, and our own friend Bill Fletcher from Clever Ideas, all on this stage with me, and literally just gave me free reign to do whatever I wanted, whatever questions I had, whatever I wanted to dig in on. And that, first of all, let's thank them. It was a great honor, and honestly, a blast. It was a really good time too. So we asked them for the audio so that you all could listen. It's taken from the stage and not from our studio here. So, Buzzy has done what he can to sort of clean up the audio. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect because we got a crew of 150 audience members. We got other people milling around that are associated with the event. If this is the first time you're listening to us, make sure you subscribe and give us an iTunes rating. And I think that's all the things I'm going to ask you for this week. Here it comes. It's not just about the tech from Thrival 2017. Thank you again to Kenny Chen, Ascender, and Thrival for setting this up. How's everybody doing?
Great. Nice to be here.
All right. So going from this end to the other end, if you wouldn't mind, just introduce yourself so everybody knows who's up here.
Bill Fletcher with Clever Ideas. We are a full-service digital media agency that specializes in fundraising campaigns for nonprofits.
My name's Laura Wilming. I am essentially what's called a business partner to leaders and founders in small but growing companies. So I work with them on the people and operations side of things, helping them develop the strategy for their people to help achieve their business goals.
Hi everyone, my name is Brian Monahan. I lead vertical strategy at Pinterest. So basically my job is to work with our product teams and our sales teams to build solutions for our various advertising partners, whether it's CPG or retail or automotive or entertainment, what have you. And I came to Pinterest after being the head of marketing at Walmart.com.
Hey guys, I'm Sheil. I came in from San Francisco, but I'm from Pittsburgh originally, repping the black and gold. And
way to play to the crowd, Sheil.
I'm a partner at a fund called 500 Startups. We are the world's most active seed stage fund. So we've invested in 1,800-ish startups in the past 7 years, and we have about $400 million to invest.
Okay, so we've got a great panel. Let's try to see whether or not we can come through with some great questions. So the first question I think everybody sort of, when they're getting started, is the age-old axiom of, if we build it, will they come? And I know, every single one of you up here has had to deal with this problem where, someone thinks that by having great tech or having a great product answer, that people will just automatically be magnetized to it and they'll just come to it, without the investment or involvement of a larger communications team or somebody getting the competitive message out. Sheil, I'm going to direct this to you because I think you're probably the most agnostic out of the group as this goes. You're looking a lot of times at 500 Startups at who do you want to back, right? How can you tell that someone is tackling it effectively?
Sure. So we invest at the super early stage, right? We're really early investors. We're not looking at a ton of numbers. We're looking at the team. And I completely agree that it's like a lot of people sort of believe that if you build an amazing product, people just flock to it. Actually, that's not true. you do need to build an effective brand. You need to be able to communicate it. So one of the things that we look at really, really, really importantly is how effective is that team communicating it to us. Because if they can't communicate their vision to us, the CEO can't communicate to us what they do, what their vision is for the future, they're not going to be able to communicate it to their customers. And actually, really importantly as well, as you know, they're not going to be able to communicate it to their next hires. And I think about like what the CEO's job is. It's really setting a vision and then hiring a bunch of people to execute that vision. And so communication is really important.
Now, Bill Fletcher, Clever Ideas, part of your whole reason for being at Clever is the fact that sometimes those founders maybe don't know how to get that word out. And if I'm right, you focus more on social media marketing as a specific area of expertise. Do I have that right?
Yeah, exactly. And to kind of come off Sheil's point, we specialize in social media marketing, and we do it pretty much exclusively with nonprofit organizations. And our clients come to us with ideas all the time of, we want to be the hippest diabetes organization on social media, and we want to have the coolest tech. And they come up with ideas, and oftentimes you need to be upfront with them and try to steer them away. Perfect example is a couple years ago, this diabetes organization, the director is obsessed with New York Times crossword puzzles, and he's like, I want a diabetes crossword puzzle as a Facebook application. And we're like, I'm not sure that's going to be, too interesting. People are passionate about diabetes, but do they want to do a crossword puzzle about diabetes? Nevertheless, he insisted, and so we went ahead and built it. It was like a $60,000 investment and a big marketing plan behind it, and it just was a total flop. So it just, going back, we learned from it, and you really need to be upfront from an agency perspective. Your clients are passionate, or our clients are passionate about their organizations, their missions, and you need to kind of be upfront with them and say, as an advertising expert, that maybe this isn't the best idea, and try to steer them in a different direction.
Now, I understand that when you're working with someone who is maybe bringing you in, they're expecting sometimes for you to disagree with them. How often, though, do they accept the disagreement? By percentages, maybe.
It's probably a 50-50 thing.
Because Brian, I'm coming to you next about product versus what people tell you they want, right? People get an idea about what they want. If they come to you with the crossword puzzle idea, I'm curious, how willing are they to be contradicted?
Well, we pushed back from the start. We had 4 or 5 meetings about it, and we just couldn't steer them away from it because this guy just is obsessed with crossword puzzles.
I like them too. They're nice.
Yeah. So, in this instance, we weren't able to steer him away from that idea. But the next time he came for us with an activation that wasn't a fundraising activation, it was more of what we call an acquisition activation, where we're trying to get people to either follow on social media, give up their email address, that kind of thing, rather than a fundraising activation. The next time he came to us, we had a different idea, and it was very simple. And there was a young boy with diabetes, so much less complicated, less expensive than a fundraising campaign, and we got 30,000 email addresses. So,
congratulations on that. And honestly, it's a hard thing to talk about sometimes when you're talking about the nonprofits and the charity work, because the cause, again, going back to the financial aspect, it's very easy to be sort of divorced from the personality and the values that people have. You're talking about something that's kind of entirely different. And Brian, I think you probably have a little bit of both problem, right? On the one hand, at Pinterest, you are social media for one thing, right? And people ask for what they want from you as a user, but also the people inside the company are asking for things as well. I'm curious, how do you make the decisions about, number one, how does a product move forward, right? And number two, how do you communicate those changes to the product without maybe inundating people with there's a shiny new button and those kinds of things? In that question, I guess one of the things I'm trying to figure out is, again, back to what we were talking about with Bill, there are going to be people who lose. They're not going to get the feature they want. They're not going to get every last shiny button that they asked for. And if you could elaborate, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, the way we attempt to build products that people really love at Pinterest is, you know, not just to kind of have the product development and then the go-to-market effort. It's kind of to create the conditions to have people-centric products to begin with. So, for example, our mission at Pinterest is to help people discover and do things they love. Our CEO, Ben Silverman, our founder, at every meeting, he starts every single meeting, and it's almost a joke. He's like, just as a reminder to everybody in here, the reason we're all here is to help people discover and do things they love. And so
I wasn't sure if that was true. It's actually one of the things that went into my question.
Yeah, so it's like kind of grounding in purpose helps. And then, you know, the other thing at Pinterest, we talk about put pinners first. And so for us as a technology company, we try to make our end users very present in our day-to-day work lives. So, you know, every conference room is a video conference room. The screensaver is a profile of a user, of a pinner. And we show, you know, what she's into, what she's doing, some of the stats around it. And, you know, we have all sorts of groups. We have a lab where we bring pinners in who work on projects together. We're constantly trying to put our engineers in front of our pinners, our advertising, our customers as well. So another end user constituents for us. So basically, it's trying to create those conditions where the products that are being made are germinated from an understanding of a real user problem, as opposed to like making it and then trying to, you know, just take it to market.
And I appreciate the level of detail, but I'm going to press you for something a little bit deeper, and that is, at some point, someone has to make the hard call, right? Because those pinners are going to make a lot of requests. And that's the nature of the beast. Sometimes it's because they don't understand what features are already baked into the product. Sometimes it's because they have this corner case maybe that other people don't have. What's your process maybe for boiling out the stuff that doesn't need to be in the product right now today?
Yeah, it's hard. So my boss is the president of Pinterest. Every single day he wears a t-shirt that says focus. That's it. Every day. Sometimes it's white, sometimes it's black. And so it's a constant exercise in prioritization, right? And it's, you know, the project champions will come into these various decision-making forums that we have, or prioritization forums, and say, here's my case for why I believe users are going to like this, or for existing things, here are my KPIs that are demonstrating that there's value being generated.
Right.
And
you're making business cases.
You make the business case and then the
booming,
user case.
Apparently, sorry about that. You're making business cases for what you want to change, and then at the end of it,
there's a line, and like you're above the line, you've got engineering resources. Below the line, you wait.
Is there ever a case where you decide to pull something back after it's over the line and it's been accomplished? Do you ever roll something back and you say this was a mistake?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the time. So we had we made a big push a couple years ago for what we called buyable pins. So we were actually like storing the credit card information in your Pinterest account, so you could do like a one-tap checkout within the Pinterest app. Sounded like we were taking friction out of the shopping experience that happens on Pinterest. The reality was that you couldn't build a basket. You could only go one item at a time. So it turned out it was a user experience that was clunky. People actually wanted to build baskets and to get into a store and shop around, and our experience didn't allow that. So we deprecated it.
And those can be tough decisions to make. I'm not going to surprise you too much here, Laura, that you're next. You're the last one standing, and I apologize for that. But I want to bring now everything that we just talked about into one neat and tidy sort of concept, and that is when we're balancing these different ideas, there are different voices that need to be heard. There are people that use the product. There are people that need funding to continue to build the product. There are people that have a vision, and they're the mad scientist behind a closed door somewhere, and they're like, no, you're never going to mess with it, right? From your perspective, the mental model that this follows, does it start now with just two people in a room hoping that everybody else agrees with them? And there's a follow-up after that, but I want to start there. Does it still, like it did 10 and 20 years ago, start with a business person and a product person?
I don't think it necessarily has to be like a business person and a product person, but oftentimes when these companies are started, it's because it's a couple of people saying, I have this issue, and I bet you other people do too, right? And I think the ones that we see get launched are the people who go out and test that idea by either first like talking to their friends and family about it to see if it like resonates, or they're actually like out testing product. And most recently, I spent 4.5 years at Harry's, and I don't know if you guys know it. Sells razors online.
I love your razors. Yes, they're fantastic. Buy Harry's, they're great.
It's really good, half the price of the other leading competitor. But their whole mission was to like create a simpler product, right? And something that got the job done without all the bells and whistles. But in order to find that product, they had to go out and test it. And like the stories that the founders of that company have about testing razors on their own faces and on their friends' faces are like morbid, to say the least. But they did that in order to like develop a product and then pair that with a brand that ultimately is what it is today.
Morbid is a word I did not think was going to make its way into today's panel.
Listen, a razor is 5 knives on your face. Like that's what it is.
This is not how you sell razors.
Your morning will never be the same.
This is why beards became a thing.
I remember when we went from like 2 blades to 3 blades, there was this Onion article that was like, Gillette CEO says, F it, I'm doing 5 blades.
Yeah.
And now here we are.
And
like 10 years later, 15 years later.
I'm pretty sure Harry's puts 5 blades into my razor like every morning. Yeah, that's for real.
This happens all
and there was
the time, by the way.
There was a commercial a couple years ago that showed like 10 blades. They were like mocking the whole 5-blade thing, and I'm sure we're going to have 10 blades soon enough.
It's coming.
The optimal number is 4, by the way.
There you go. Tweet that.
Fifth blade
I'm
is
buying
useless.
too many blades. That's how they get you.
6-hour energy.
But
I've seen that actually.
Sheil, you and me, okay? I'm moderating now. I get at least a cut,
Sorry.
okay? So pushing past that, as much as I do enjoy talking about razors, I think we did start off from a position where there was a business person and then there was a product person. And then, and please, don't believe anything I say, but I'm asking you. We started finding out product was more complicated maybe than we thought it was. So we needed a database person, we needed a front-end person, we needed a UI expert, we needed these types of people. But it seems like maybe we still have that one business person on the front. I know that complexity is the enemy, but I'm curious, do we need larger teams to start these startups? Do we need larger founding teams now? Is that the lesson we've learned?
Well, I guess what I see happen a lot is that the founding team, while like there's 2 people who initiate the idea, and as she was saying earlier, like it's their job to build their founding team. And I would say like the employees from 0 to 30, like that is your founding team, and that group of people is the one that's really going to shape what.
See, that kind of feels like it goes in line with what everybody's talking about. Sheila, I'm curious to see if you have an opinion on the size of founding teams getting bigger. Now that we're learning about complexity.
Yeah, there's like a certain number of co-founders you can support, and then there's sort of like what Laura's talking about, which is the early employees are all setting the tone for future employees. But really, we look for founding teams kind of between 1 and 3. Beyond that, it tends to be too many, and then we always see in 4-person founding teams like 2 years in.
Okay, I pride myself on the follow-up question. How did you come to 1 to 3?
And it's really 2 or 3 for the most part.
Right, but how did that decision get made is what I'm curious about.
I think just experience. Like you see, there certainly are companies that have worked with just one founder, but I always, I like to see more because you need somebody to bounce ideas off of. and sort of the typical team is hacker, hustler, and designer, right? So, but it doesn't have to be. Anyway, how do we came to 2 to 3? It's just experience. Like you see what people have done and what worked.
Bill, I think this works out for you because that means I've got to outsource an awful lot of social media marketing if it's 2 to 3 people to start get the thing out of inertia. I mean, Brian, how many people do you have working on just getting the word out about product? And I mean, it's got to be more than 2 or 3 is what I'm driving at, but I'm curious.
Pinterest is a mid-sized company. We have probably about 1,200 employees now, and I would guess that there's maybe 100 in marketing.
Right. There's 100 people in marketing at Pinterest, right? And I mean, if you want to rise above the noise level and compete with Pinterest, you've got your work cut out for you. That's kind of where I'm at. Is we're talking about it's not just the tech that brings people in. You can have a great product, but if nobody knows it exists, then that user acquisition is a slow drip as opposed to what everybody kind of envisions. It's like when someone buys a lottery ticket and then they start spending the winnings before they've even read out the numbers. So you've got probably 100 people doing marketing and branding and that sort of thing.
The way that we've really grown. So we just crossed 200 million monthly active users. So it's really by just A/B testing everything. So every Friday we do an all hands meeting and we do what's called 3-minute demos. And teams get up and they say, here's what I shipped this week. And you do a little demo and people clap. And the ones that get the most applause are enhancements to our testing framework so that we can deploy tests against, N% of the traffic and A, B, C, D, however test it, get quick results and roll it out. And just by optimizing every little piece of the product is a way to kind of just grow loyalty and grow word of mouth. And that's really how Pinterest has grown as opposed to going out and educating and talking about it. It's just making the experience better bit by bit by bit every single day.
Well, and I'm going to pick on you for one extra minute, and that is that you had insight into how Walmart.com was doing things too. What's the difference between the two experiences on that? I mean, Walmart has to have, again, a small army of people doing these things. And I realize it's not yesterday that you were there. Things have probably changed. But I'm curious if you can sort of tell us how the super huge Walmart.com engine does their brand communication. Hey, we've got new things going on.
Yeah, I mean, retail's a different industry than being a media platform. So yeah, there was a ton of outbound marketing that would happen around just driving traffic, driving trips to the store, what have you.
Sheil, talking about financial tech, that's more B2B, right? And we're talking.
It can be. I would say the way I break it down, there are new consumer brands, and when I say new consumer brands, they actually can be either directed at consumers like us, or they can be directed at small businesses because I think small businesses are basically people. There are tons of cafes or a place that employs less than 20, 50, or less than 50 people. It's kind of just you're marketing to people.
So should I take it then that it's maybe not as B2B as I thought it was? Because I mean,
and then there's sort of another side
as being primarily you're marketing to someone who makes decisions on behalf of a large organization. And I think I may have that wrong based on your answer.
That's certainly a part of it too. And so if I break it down into these new consumer brands, and then there's another side of it, which is selling into big institutions like banks. And that's a totally different thing. So the way that you market to small businesses and consumers is very, very different than an enterprise sales machine that you need to market to big institutions. And I actually would argue that although marketing and effective brand communication is important for the latter, it's certainly not as important as it is when you're marketing to individuals and small businesses. So I personally have had 3 companies. 2 of them were marketed. One is directly consumer. It's a food company actually in San Francisco. The other one was called Fee Fighters, a payments company. We marketed primarily to small businesses. And the third one, it's an auction company. We sell to very large institutions and governments. And the auction company, I made the logo for $1 on logoyes.com. And it doesn't matter. We did hundreds of millions of dollars of business, and it doesn't matter at all. And the communication is basically going out and selling business. For the other companies, it's very much more methodical and careful. And communication means a very different thing.
I appreciate you reading my mind on that, because that's exactly where I think the conversation goes next. As we talk to some of these companies that, again, they do think that the technology will carry them across the finish line, some of them might be right? I think there is a certain subset where the tech is enough if you've got the right B2B customer who doesn't want to see it in a Super Bowl ad. They don't necessarily need it to be something that gets discussed at the lodge.
I still think that sales is important. Even if you have great technology, you need to have great enterprise sales. So either you're building a world-class marketing organization, like you guys have, I think, at Pinterest and Harry's, or there's a world-class enterprise sales function. And sometimes it's both. Sometimes there's a crossover. Dropbox is sort of the typical example where really they are an enterprise company, but they started out marketing to individuals, and individuals at companies were starting to use Dropbox, and then that upsold into selling the enterprise. That's a relatively unique example. For the most part, you're either selling to enterprise or you're selling to individuals.
What I'm trying to do is, rather than saying that 0% of cases, right? I don't want to say zero, because that's obviously that's a myth, right? The axiom doesn't actually apply to 100% of cases. But is it 1%? Is it 2% that can actually get their goals achieved by just building great tech, and then all of a sudden the word spreads like wildfire? And Laura, I'm going to come to you with this question too, because you've got some insight into it as well.
It's a pretty small percent. I think as many organizations like to say that they don't have anyone. There are a lot of organizations that say we don't have anyone doing marketing or sales. It's bullshit. There's always someone doing marketing, sales. They're very careful about their PR. Square very early on used to tell me, I worked with Square very closely in the early days, and it will say, "Oh, we don't do any sales."
Slack did this. Everybody believed that Slack didn't have any sales.
Yeah, well, they have Super Bowl commercials. So
no, Slack has a gigantic sales team. They just don't want you to know about it because it makes it look like it doesn't sell itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sheila, just building on what you were saying, I think whether or not you have a marketing team, you have to have a commitment to brand. Yeah. Even building B2B product, B2C product, and really, I think that's purpose. I think at the end of the day, it's why are you guys coming into work? What are you trying to do? And that needs to be felt in every interaction. When you log into the product, when you meet with the sales team, or when you bump into some of the marketing that gets pushed out.
So, Laura, I am coming back to you, and I do want to lean on the Harry's example for this, because obviously, very heavy B2C, right? I mean, I'm sure that there were deals worked out, like the Target deal, where Target was one of the few places that could actually sell their razors, right? But they'd already reached, and correct me if I'm wrong, they'd kind of already reached momentum by the time they got to Target, yes?
Yeah, I guess you can momentum for sure, but there's always risk 3 or 4 years in that it tops out. And I think the Target deal and getting Harry's and Target accelerated the growth even more, because while a lot of people are moving online and buying e-commerce, there's still a lot of people that are shopping in stores. So that helped with the reach. But internally, with the culture and how we were thinking about the brand and communication, I remember it being a little bit of a shift in our team and how they were approaching it, and they had to kind of go back to the drawing board, because we were no longer just this completely vertical e-commerce company that was from manufacturer to consumer through our site. But what we ended up doing was actually stepping back, thinking about what the company's mission was, what the values were, and realizing our values point us into the direction of not just having to commit to this original one note idea of what the business should be, which I thought that happens.
It's not a product. It's an attitude. It's a brand. It's the top-down feeling. Okay, so the one question I want to give to all four of you. We're definitely, and we keep hitting the social media note over and over and over again, because it seems to be a very effective way to reach people. I'm curious what you think comes next, right? And when I say what comes next, Bill, you travel all over the world. You follow the social media patterns and what it is that people are using in order to sell to, whether it be just the brand or sell the product. I'm curious now, as all these different brands tend to use the same tools, what comes after these tools? And I don't want to paint us necessarily say like social is going to go away or anything like that, but what's the next refinement that we should all be researching?
Yeah, so what they say is where there's a medium, there's advertising. So I think the next big step in rich media advertising is VR. I think you're going to start seeing the more and more brands testing like rich VR ads, whether it's, if you're a big fan of Sam Adams beer, maybe they give you a cool VR tour of the brewery if you're living on the West Coast and don't get to Boston very often. Or, if you have a favorite football or baseball team, they give you a VR tour of the locker room with the players there and you can shake hands and all that kind of stuff. I think that the VR is really going to be the next big medium that advertising takes advantage of.
Okay, if the social media team can please tag Jim Cook from Sam Adams Beer in on that and make sure he knows that he owes Bill Fletcher at least one beer. Okay.
On board with the VR thing, I think that one of the things I'm excited to see is more like cross-company collaborations for branding and marketing purposes. So like if you go with like the Sam Adams example, it's like maybe, I don't know, Pinterest paying Sam Adams to make them a beer and then like selling that.
I really want to dig way deep into that concept, but we're running out of time. You'll have to come on the show. Brian, what do you have?
So I would say an area of innovation where people will discover new products is, certainly for Pinterest, what we're betting on is visual discovery. We actually don't think of Pinterest as a social network. You don't open the Pinterest app to see what your friends are up to or be entertained. It's a planning tool. It's a visual discovery tool. And when about half of our usage is when people tap on a pin, we return basically search results. So we sort of understand the characteristics of that image and then return image files that map to it. And really mobile devices are suited for imagery more so than text. And then you start to factor in the pervasiveness of cameras. So we have a new product called Pinterest Lens where you can take a picture of an object and then we will return relevant search results based on our taste graph of what we think that is. So we think navigating in a world without words is actually a really powerful new way to help people discover new products. If you have the words to describe what you're looking for, then the Echo, Google Home, awesome, great ways. Give me replenish something. If you have something new, you don't know how to describe it. You're like, just that looks kind of cool. I don't know what those are, and you can take a picture of it. I think that's an exciting new way. And of course, with a medium, there's advertising opportunities, so there will be ways to kind of weave a promotional message in the middle of that flow.
I'm going to disagree a little bit on the VR side. I've been a big VR bear for many years, and
just as long as you come through with something that you're bullish on, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I just don't think I think it's cool. You can get a tour of the Steelers locker room once. That's cool for 5 minutes. But then where's the future? How long are you going to spend in VR? And people are not spending very much time right now. And there are technological reasons and others, but I personally don't see it being as big as a lot of people think. But obviously, I could definitely be wrong. I do think AR, sort of more along the lines of what you were talking about. AR, there's certainly a lot of possibilities. The new iPhone has pretty cool capabilities. I've struggled to come up. I've wanted to build on it, and I struggled to come up with anything super compelling. Actually, in the financial services space, I had to really stretch to think of an AR application. But it's cool for stuff like furniture. I can't wait to design my next room using AR. Or these glasses that I bought online. I should have been able to just have an AR look at them and see what they look like from all angles. So I'm really bullish on AR. And then I think voice search. Certainly, there's a big future in voice search. Amazon announced a bunch of stuff yesterday. It's really cool. I think that we will be using voice more and more. It is a little bit weird to think about because a lot of times you're in in a crowd of a bunch of people. Like, how are you going to communicate via voice? But I think at home, certainly, I do want to do things with voice, and I use my echoes a lot. So I think that's good future potential.
I hope everybody got a lot out of this panel. I know I did, and like I said, I wish we could go longer, but unfortunately, they said they invited other people, so we have to get off the stage. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you've got at least 10 minutes for questions.
All right, that's it for this week. Thanks to Kenny and Ascender and Thrival. It was again a great honor, a lot of fun, and it's really nice just to have free reign and be able to ask the questions that need to be asked. Made some friends up there on that stage too. It was really, really a great day. So next week we'll be back, regular format, me in the studio with a guest, and you basically know how it goes from there. We'll catch you in about 7 days. I hope you enjoy it. Take care of yourselves in the meantime.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and McTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, pitchwerks.